In our previous installment on how to study the Bible, we suggested 3 questions that the Bible students should ask. 1, what is the verse saying to me? 2, is it pointing out some duty I ought to perform? And 3, is it identifying a sin I need to confess? And the reason for that is, as we said in the previous segment, is that discovering God's will is the major reason for studying the Bible. But a secondary reason for studying the Bible is to be a blessing to others through your accumulation of knowledge, through your exposure to God's will for your life. And so a question you may ask as you study the Bible is, how can I use this knowledge to bless someone? For instance, if you studied Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ which strengtheneth me. Having studied that for yourself, you may ask the question, now how can I use this verse to strengthen someone, maybe a colleague at work, a classmate in the classroom, a family member, a member of the church who's struggling, who has a burden? How can I use this that through me, God may minister help to that person? And so a question you can ask is, how can I use this verse to be a blessing to someone else? Another question you may ask is, am I willing to memorize this verse? You know, sometimes we read verses, they're so beautiful, we wish we can keep them forever. And yes, we should. And that is by the process of memorization. For instance, if you study John 1:1-4, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. You go down to verse 4, in Him was life, and the life was the light of men. You may find that a beautiful expression, and you may decide to memorize, in Him was life, and the life was the light of men. And so as you study Bible passages, you ask, which of these verses would I like to commit to memory so that I always have it? There is another question you may ask that benefits both you and others to whom you minister, and the question is this: how does this verse I am studying help me to understand another verse that might have been puzzling to me? For instance, John 1:1-4, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And you read that and you say, well, who is this Word? You go to verse 2, the same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by Him, and without Him was not anything made that was made. By reading verse 3, you get a clue that the Word is the one who created. But when you get to verse 14, the clue becomes massive. And the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us. And so you always ask the question, the verse I am presently studying, how does it help me to understand another verse? Does it cast light on another area of the Bible? You see, the Bible explains itself. So it's a very legitimate question to ask, how does this explain some other Bible passage? And so as you study, remember the questions. 1, how can I use this to be a blessing to someone else? Question following that, how does this verse help me to understand some other passage of the Bible? And perhaps the number one question is Jesus revealed somehow in this verse? Do I learn something about Jesus I did not know by studying this verse? And so we're recommending 3 more questions. 1, how can I use this to bless someone? 2, how does this help me understand another portion of the Bible? And 3, is the verse revealing something about Christ I did not know before? Keep these questions in mind as you study God's beautiful word. May the Lord bless you and use you to be a blessing to others.